Good afternoon. This is Christopher Tipper, CEO and founder of Hunter Benefits Consulting Group and co-host of our On the Couch, the Friday afternoon bourbon edition. But it's Tuesday. This is supposed to be our serious topic. This is Christina Cannonen. How you doing?
Okay.
Okay. Normally does our Washington update and is also in charge of our Tuesday topic. That's when we discuss a white paper. Today's white paper is about compensation. And for those of you paying attention at home, you will notice that we did not have a white paper last month, correct?
Correct.
Because this was a topic so
onerous.
There we go. Can we please kick this one down the road? And I said, sure. All right. The funny thing, air quotes, funny thing about compensation is that getting correct, accurate, usable, complete, timely compensation for us is probably the hardest part of our job. And it's also, unfortunately, probably one of the hardest things to define, one of the squishiest or squirreliest things to explain to somebody, and the thing that can probably catch people out the most, even when they're paying attention and trying to do their best. Does that sound about right?
That's true. The IRS has found that using the incorrect compensation in the plan is the most common error that they find when they examine a plan.
Yay. All right.
Yay.
So then I guess we're going to start off at the beginning. Now, and what we do in this format is we're not reading the white paper to you. I did think about that for a hot minute once. All right. We've got some questions we're going to discuss. So basically what we're going to do is ask some questions to discuss the important elements of the white paper. All right.
Okay.
Christina.
Yeah.
What is compensation?
Compensation is remuneration for personal services offered to the employer. That includes wages, salaries, bonuses, commissions, fees for professional services, and certain fringe benefits.
And tips.
And tips.
And I think hopefully at some point, I can't remember exactly
Yes.
where it is on here, but tips can pose a little bit of an operational problem.
They can pose a nightmare.
Substantial operational problem. All right. Now then, so why are we saying that compensation can be difficult for plan sponsors?
Well, because you have the plan sponsor who has the idea about what he does and does not want to make contributions on. And then you have your advisor who has his own ideas as to how to design a plan.
Right.
And then you have the government.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So everybody's on the same page?
No.
No.
Nobody's on the same page. That's the problem. But the government trumps everything.
Yes, definitely. So, how are tips handled? So how do you have a successful 401k or a qualified retirement plan, for that matter, with a restaurant?
With a restaurant, number one, all the tips have to be run through payroll.
Yeah, that does.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
You know. Yeah.
So if somebody's working in a job that's primarily tips,
right,
the deferral can only be on payroll. But we're probably going to be given a compensation amount that's more because they're supposed to estimate for payroll taxes and all that other stuff, right?
Right.
All right, that sounds like fun.
No, it's not.
All right. Is compensation, I've been thinking about this question, but is compensation always annual? It would seem my W-2 is annual. My tax return is annual.
It is annual. But if you're talking about deferrals, you really want to define it by the payroll period, because that's what they're deferring from, is that payroll period,
so
not from the whole year.
It's not. Okay. That book got tired. I didn't know they could do that. So if you're deferring 5%, you're not deferring 5% of the annual wages. You're deferring 5% of whatever compensation is. We'll get to that again in a minute.
Right.
For that pay period.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Now then, we've got to be careful about the use of the word safe harbor. All right. I always say big S, big H for when we're talking about the safe harbor contributions, but we've got other safe harbors. So I'm presuming that there are safe harbors in compensation. Is that true?
There are 3. 415 compensation, well, there are 2 in addition. 415 compensation is compensation basically that includes everything except for contributions and distributions from an unfunded deferred compensation plan. Okay. W-2 compensation is probably the easiest for participants to understand and the easiest for an employer to grab hold of, because it's everything that needs to be reported in box 1 of the W-2 form.
Okay, but isn't box 1 where you keep the where you would report non-cash compensation? I'm thinking about moving expenses is the one thing that can always move you out. No, get you in trouble, because let's say it's $10,000 in moving expenses. That's going to be in box 1, right? Right, okay. But you can't defer. If you've written a check for 10 grand to U-Haul, you can't defer on $10,000, right?
Right.
So that's something that we need to be paying attention to be excluded from compensation.
Yes, but that's in section 3401. Compensation
okay.
is the moving expenses.
Okay.
In the W-2 compensations, you exclude the moving expenses and tips less than $20 a month.
Okay, all right. What impact does 401k contributions have on compensation?
All 401k deferrals have to be included in compensation, even though the W-2 compensation box 1 does not include the deferrals.
Okay.
You have to add them back in.
Okay, and when we're talking about deferrals, if the plan sponsor has a cafeteria plan, a welfare benefit plan, does that also need to be added to box 1?
It's a deferral.
Okay, it's a deferral, but so you can't just look at what's the box that's got payroll tax wages or something like that in it. I can't remember exactly what it said, but you can't use that because that number does not include cafeteria benefits. Right. Okay. So how do you determine? We were talking about safe harbor definitions of compensation. Mm-hmm. That means that people have definitions of compensation that aren't safe harbor.
Yes.
It means a test is needed. How do you work that out? What's that called?
The test is called the Section 414S test.
Okay.
414S looks at how much compensation is being included in the plan, divided by the total amount of compensation for the participant, and that percentage, and then you average it for the non-Hileys and the Hileys, because the object is not to benefit the Hileys more than the non-Hileys.
Right. So if you've got a definition of compensation that is only reducing the compensation for people who are non-highly compensated employees, so example, if you're excluding overtime.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, never works.
Hardly ever works.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If you're paying overtime to your highly compensated people, that would be unusual.
Yeah, but then but you can also have compensation for highly compensated people that is so high that even when you take all the exclusions off, their comp is still above the limit, so it's still 100%.
Yeah.
So how do you fix a failed? What would you call it, a 414S test? How do you fix a failed 414S test?
You have to change your definition of compensation.
Is it? Oh, it's a document amendment?
Yeah.
Not just an operational?
Not just an operational.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, Christina. We have plans where participants can be coming in different times. The simplest question, let's do the simplest. Let's not make it as complicated as possible. You could have a semi-annual entry date.
Right.
Okay, so you could have somebody come in July 1st.
Right.
Are there instances where we don't have to use their compensation from 1/1 through 6/30? Can we exclude their compensation prior to 7/1 in some instances?
You can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
In some instances.
In some instances, all right. But that means, and I think I know the answer, and it might have to do with how heavy something is. Is there a situation where you have to use compensation for the whole year?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the
determining the 415 limit, and also doing the top-heavy minimum.
Okay, so let me see if I can do this real quickly. So let's say, $58,000 is the 415 limit.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It is? I think it is this year. Yeah. Okay, $58,000 this year.
Yeah.
And somebody came in the plan in the middle of the year, that's $29,000 in comp. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we could theoretically give that person a $58,000 contribution, because their comp for the whole year is 58 grand, but it's going to look really good on a test because we've only got plan comp.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yes.
And then the same thing is something that's probably going to happen a lot more is with top heavy minimum, because that has to be 3% of the whole year, right? Okay, so that's 3% for the whole year. So if somebody's got 3% for the whole year, but their plan comp is only half that, 3 times, it's going to make it look like it's 6%. Okay,
Right.
so that's sometimes why if somebody's looking at an allocation report, they're seeing somebody's compensation is $30,000, but they're getting an $1,800. I hope I'm doing the math right on that. 6 times 3. Yeah, they're doing an $1,800 contribution. That's because it's top heavy on the whole thing. Okay.
Right.
What about determining highly compensated employees? What compensation do we have to use for that?
$415 for the whole year.
For the whole year. So even if somebody comes in during the middle of the plan year, none of that matters. It's their entire amount that they, including all the things like we were talking about with moving expenses and all those other things. Oh, okay. Can a plan sponsor limit the compensation that a participant can actively defer? Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way.
You can, but why?
Would you want to be would you want to be doing that for Hileys maybe, so that they pass the test?
Well, if you did, and yeah, you would want to pass the test. But it's like, why would you want to do that? Because you can, the ADP testing is based on all of their compensation, not just the non-excluded compensation.
Oh, so okay.
So that's
okay. All right. So I think we're going to try to wrap this up. We're supposed all the electronic media people say we're supposed to have 3 key takeaways.
Yes.
Number 1 is pay attention to what your plan definition of compensation is. If you don't understand, ask questions. Number 2, pay attention to non-cash compensation, right? And number 3, it's okay if you're confused.
And number 4, keep it simple.
Keep it, yeah. Okay, maybe make that number 3, Filippo, on the write-up. Yeah, number 3 is keep it simple. Because it, even when you're trying to keep it simple, it can get kind of squirrely.
We could spend months.
Oh, I've seen people try to exclude overtime for one division, okay, and certain amounts of, they're limiting commission for another division. I've seen some really crazy definitions and compensation. And you know what usually happens? They fail the 414S test, and you have to go and put it all back in anyways.
Right.
So, and for me, this is my best practice in the way I think about something. If you're going to put a safe harbor, big S, big H, contribution into your plan, why have a definition of compensation that's not also safe harbor?
Right.
We put the safe harbor contributions in there to help pass testing. Why give ourselves another non-discrimination testing issue? Okay?
Correct.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Filippo, did you learn something today?
I did.
I love having Filippo here. He makes us look good. All right, so thank you very much for joining. We're going to get this posted up pretty soon here. It's our Tuesday Topics with Christina and Christopher. If you've got any questions, please silence your watches and email us at sales@hunterbenefits.com. And of course, the website is www.hunterbenefits.com. Take care and have a great week. Thanks, Christina.